Welcome back to the Mav Cheddar Podcast, episode number 3. I'm your host, Jim Maciejewski, Athletic Director at Mauldin High School. Joining me today is head wrestling coach, Quay Scott.
Coach Scott, welcome to episode 3 of Mav Cheddar. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, jumping right in. Give us the Cliff Notes version, I guess, of your background, where you went to school, where you grew up, all that kind of stuff.
Well, I grew up as a preacher's kid, so we moved around a good bit during my time growing up, mainly in the upstate. Ended up at Hillcrest High School, went on to Clemson. Ended up getting my teaching certificate and got into teaching. I was kind of into everything growing up as far as sports were concerned. I was actually a baseball player. And the sport outgrew me, which is what happened to about every other sport. So I came into the 9th grade weighing 100 pounds, soaking wet, and got pulled in by my wrestling coach. And from there, I fell in love with the sport and kind of kept going through there.
Did you know, I guess, when you got into wrestling, was coaching something that you knew you wanted to do, whether it was any of the other sports that you played? Was it wrestling specifically? Did you know at an early age that you wanted to be a coach? And if so, like, how did that coaching journey evolve?
No, I didn't want to be a coach until it was based on the experience I had in high school. I had really good coaches in high school for wrestling. It was a good experience, and so I wanted to continue that experience on the other side as far as coaching. I think you find your competitive spirit or your competitive edge, and that's something that I've never lost. And so this is kind of a way that I can use that competitive edge and use it to benefit kids and help them with trying to sort their way through life.
Talk us through, I guess, the timeline of where you've been, some of the roles that you've held throughout your coaching experience, coaching career.
Well, I graduated from Clemson with a degree in economics. No education. Really wasn't interested in being a teacher, but I wanted to be a coach. So those two things came hand in hand. And so I started coaching when I was a senior at Clemson, and coached at Daniel High School. Had a good experience there. Graduated, ended up going to coaching at Greer. Had my first state champion there when I was probably 23 years old. Ended up at Hillcrest for a couple of years, and unfortunately, after a couple of years, the teaching part is why I decided to get out. Unfortunately, but I got out for a few years, got back in, coached a few years at Woodmont, and then ended up at Mauldin, where I was an assistant under Mike Fry, who was obviously a legendary coach, and was able to coach under him for a few years before taking over at Mauldin. And then eventually I went into private business and got out altogether in 2015.
Good segue right there to the next question. So you did teach special education here. I believe you were teacher of the year, one of those years, correct?
My last year, I was teacher of the year.
Okay.
Year after I guess I'd reached the pinnacle, so it was time for me to roll on out. I went out on, but yeah, I got teacher of the year. I was proud of that. And taught special ed for about 15 years, and had a great experience with that. But again, that's a different animal as far as the paperwork and the all the things that job entails, and it just got to a point where I was burnt out of teaching, and started a small business. And over the past 7 years, it has grown to where I can run my business part of the day and it opens up my afternoons to come to Mauldin High and work with football or wrestling or wherever they'll have me.
Going back to your time as a teacher here, I remember coming up to the classroom for any random reason, and I believe they were called were they Quayisms? What were those things called up on the wall? Remind me what those things were about, where
Yeah,
they came from.
we had a wall of Quayisms where they were things that unprofessional things that came out of my mouth that they got a kick out of. But one thing we did have in my classroom was sarcasm. So if you weren't sarcastic and you took things personally, it might be a difficult journey. Same way with the wrestling program here. If these kids take me too seriously, then they might get their feelings hurt when they didn't need to get their feelings hurt. Yeah, we had a lot of Quayisms, and I had two great assistants with Michelle Martin still there and Terry Gerst, and they would take those and they would put them on the board, and I'll slap the taste out your mouth, and there's no stupid questions, only stupid people, things like that we had a good time doing, and tried to make it sarcastic and not take everything so dang seriously. And most people were okay with it. There's a few times people called me on them, and I just had to ask them to lighten up a little bit. And but we had a good time.
Yeah, that's one thing I was going to say. Not only the sarcasm, but a lot of fun. Those kids did some great things. I remember, being involved within the PE department, having some of them, and a lot of fun was had by the three of you guys and all those kids for sure.
Absolutely.
So, you get out of teaching, you go into the private sector and get a real job, if you will. What called you back into the coaching profession?
It's crazy. I got sucked into coaching flag football for my son Sam, who's one of our wrestlers now, and it was one of those deals where we had a group of kids that wanted to play together for Mauldin Rec, and the only way they could play together is if we had a coach. And so I think that I ended up getting suckered into that, but I just had it was I knew it was something that I missed. And so that led me, then the Mauldin job came open. Obviously, Mauldin High School has a special place in my heart. So when that came open, and the wrestling program, and I know it's difficult for ADs to find a wrestling coach, a quality wrestling coach. And so when it came open, I was, I had more time. My business was under control, and it was just seemed like a good thing for me to offer myself if I was given the opportunity. And that was with a son that was refusing to wrestle. I was going to do it without him even participating. And then, I was able to pay him to participate. So, anyway, best couple $100 I've ever spent. But anyway, yeah, it was one of those things where I just, I just miss being out there, miss the sport, miss the kids, miss coaching. And again, I've got when you got a competitive edge to you need an outlet to, to use that competitive edge. And it was just a good opportunity for me.
Absolutely. Let's rewind. And we've talked about this before. Going back 2 years ago, we hire you. We're going to introduce you to the kids. There's 6 kids in the gym. And then fast forward to today. With how the program's grown over the last 2 years. What are you most proud of? And where do you feel that the program's headed?
That was an interesting day. I was expecting a little more, but yeah, you and I, we walked in the gym and to have our introductory meeting, I guess. And there were 6 kids, and I think there were only 3 of them that actually ended up wrestling.
Okay.
So it was it was discouraging, but they, after we began our workouts, they started to come in for whatever reason they had decided they weren't going to be a part of the program. They changed their mind. So we ended up with last year we ended up with 25, 30 kids. A lot of the seniors came back. So we had a nice little core group of seniors. And that was very helpful for us to have some success. But we had a gap. We had 6 or 7 seniors, and we had 15 freshmen. So no juniors, 2 sophomores. So right now we're dealing with that gap. But what I'm most proud of is that right now we've got about 25 kids, and they bought in, and they work their tail off, and they're good kids. They represent the program well. They represent the school well. And that's what I'm most proud about, those kids. Last year there'd been no state champions for 20 years. We had a boys state champion in Peyton Fisher. We had a girls state champion in Bianca Connell. And then this year, just a couple of weeks ago, we had our first middle school state champion in Kamari Cannon. So having 3 state champions in 2 years, and the season's not over yet, is a great accomplishment for any program. But our kids coming up, or our middle school kids, we've got a group of 8 middle school kids, and every one of them has a winning record in middle school. We've got 3 kids. Oh, excuse me. We've got Kamari Cannon 38-2, and then we've got 3 more kids with Reese Phelps, Josh Evans, and Khalil Kemp, and they're all 20 match winners. So I tell our guys now, like, we've got 4 guys coming up that will be varsity wrestlers next year. So we've got some young guys on our team that have to step up their game, or they're going to get their spot taken next year by a rising 9th grader. So where we are now is, right now is we have a great middle school group. We have a great JV group. And we're just lacking on the older guys, but that will change next year, just because of that gap last year that we were dealing with. So it's all uphill from now. Right now is the worst we'll be. Just to be honest with you, this is kind of the bottom, because of our lack of experience and our lack of age. We got 14 and 15-year-olds that are out there starting on our varsity lineup.
Right. And there's no doubt with how hard you guys work, throughout the course of the summer, in the weight room 4 days a week, and mat time, and open season and the off season. There's no doubt that the program is on the rise, and the trajectory is something that sitting there firsthand, it's exciting with all those young wrestlers we do have. When you're selling to a middle school kid, you're recruiting our hallways, recruiting other sports on campus. Hey, come out and wrestle. What is your pitch? Because obviously, wrestling's not for everybody. It's one of those sports where you're a special and different individual to want to put yourself, number one, through those practices. You're out there on an island alone. How do you sell that to kids to come be involved within your program?
Well, we're always looking at the football players, and the bottom line is, if you wrestle, you're going to be a better football player. In fact, if you wrestle, you're going to be a better athlete overall. You're going to be tougher, but you're going to, we've got a lot of football players that come out, and they, just through the cardio that we do, they lose that baby fat that they need to lose, just to prepare them to get in the weight room in the off season and bulk up muscles. So it's just a beneficial sport for anyone that wants to do that. But the toughness part is what they really gain out of it. There's a saying that once you've wrestled, everything in life is easy. And that's true. I've had kids in the past, they go to the military and they go into basic training, and they're like, it was a breeze because I'd wrestled. And so when we send our kids to lacrosse or to soccer or baseball, any of our spring sports, they're going to be in the best shape of their life for those coaches. And it's the same for our summer workouts. A lot of our kids that do football and wrestle, they'll stick around and they'll train for 5 hours during the summer. And it just makes them a better athlete. But it's not for everybody, that's for sure. It will expose you for what you are. And that is one of the tricks to that's one of the issues as far as the keeping kids out. They will be exposed if they're not tough. They will be exposed if they're not strong, and they need to work harder in the weight room. They will find that out, and so sometimes that exposure is difficult for folks to handle. But if they can weather the storm when they first start, they will benefit from it. And so that's really how we push it. Is hey, I'm looking for the toughest kids in the school, male and female, the toughest kids in school, and I feel like I have them, because if they can deal with us for 4 months, 3.5 months, then that's what they are. They're tough, no doubt about it. Whether they're winners or losers in the matches, just the fact that they can make it through those 2-hour practices that are a absolute grind, 4 to 5 days a week, they're tough and they're winners just from doing that. So I'm always proud of my guys just because they can do that, and hopefully we'll have more to continue to come out.
Well, I've told you before, you got one coming. My son will be there hopefully this summer, and for the exact reason that you talked about, the toughness aspect, the mental toughness part of it, the physical toughness, and start getting him some characteristics that not only will help him hopefully as an athlete, but just as a person to try to overcome some adversity. So I'm fired up to just get him here and get him rolling.
Absolutely.
All right. I told you earlier before we started recording, we're going to start I don't want to segment because this is totally not a professional production by any means, but something we're going to call the Stampede, which is essentially 4 lightning round questions that have really no meaning to wrestling or sports or Mauldin athletics. Just kind of get a gauge of I don't know, you as a person. The first one: what's your favorite binge-worthy TV show?
Binge-worthy TV show.
Something that you may be watching now in all of your obviously free time that you have.
Well, I like the right now I'm watching True Detective.
Okay.
On HBO, a good one. But now, Breaking Bad was a big one. Lost. If you've ever seen Lost, I binge watched that one time. Holy cow! When that was over, I didn't know what to do with myself for a while. Lost is probably one of my all-time favorites, but Breaking Bad, and I like the detective shows, all that. That's all good stuff. But usually, I sit down, I start watching it, and I'm 15 minutes, and I'm knocked out on my recliner. So
yeah, pretty much
same time to do it.
Same here. I'm a big Dateline guy, so Dateline's always going in our house on the weekends. But all right, second one: most influential person in your life.
Oh, definitely my dad. Like I said, he was a minister. Just supported me in every aspect of life. Didn't matter what I wanted to do, he was there. Just great man. We lost him about 4 years ago, but he's definitely the one who sent me in the right direction most of the time. He was a much better person and calmer person than I am, but he's definitely the most influential person.
Third one, and I think you answered this with starting to watch your shows and end up sleeping in the recliner. But what are you currently reading, or a great book that you can recommend?
I do not read.
Awesome. Next one. Simple.
If I read it, you know what? The only thing I've read, if I'm reading, it would be the Bible, but it's usually on my app. But I don't read. I see people read, and I can't figure it out. I'd rather go run.
I hear you. I wish I was a runner. So speaking of the Bible and the app, so I have a daily missal on my phone that I use when we go to church on Sundays, and Amanda's mortified that I have that thing out. It kind of takes you through mass and all that stuff with the readings and all that stuff. And she looks over and she gives me an elbow. She bought me a book that has everything, but sometimes I forget it. Leave it in the car, and it's just easy to pull up the phone. So she's not a fan of me having my phone out, and I'm like, I'm not doing it. Like, I'm following along. I'm paying attention. I'm not a 10-year-old. Like, I'm keeping up with everything, but she gets so mad at me when I pull up my app and on Sundays. I got to do better bringing that book. All right, last one. You could have dinner with any person in history. Who is it and why?
Oh, jeez.
I'm putting you on the spot. I know.
Who is it and why? Man, there's not a whole lot of people I want to sit down and have dinner with. To be honest with you, I'm not into to I don't know. Dan Gable, greatest wrestling coach of all time. I could sit down and pick his brain a little bit,
Okay.
but I'd probably rather not. I could just read his book or something. I'd probably rather read than hang out with somebody. Yeah, I'm not
I
much of
hear
a
you.
dinner guy, but yeah, Dan Gable. Some of these coaches. I'd be interested in meeting them. I'm kind of a I'm kind of an underdog guy. I like to talk to people who do the impossible. If it wasn't a quick question, I could probably come up with you, but I like the underdog. I like to see somebody that's at the bottom against all odds, that shocks the world. And I think that kind of puts that's another thing that I like about coaching. And coaching at Mauldin right now, as far as when when you roll into your first meeting, there's 6 kids, and people tell you this, you're wasting your time. Yeah, that's one of those things where that gets me ticking. Um, you know, I like it when people are told they can't do something and then they do it. So people in that genre would be what I would be looking for for dinner. But you hit me on the spot, so
I
I
know.
can't.
I know.
Not a Rocky Balboa, man. If he was a real person, somebody like that. One of my favorite movies. That it's somebody like that shocks the world.
Well, you can take the rest of the day and think about it, and then hit me up later on, and we'll hash it out.
All right.
Um, but Quay, man, I appreciate you taking the time. This has been a lot of fun.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Mav Chatter, and a special thank you to head wrestling coach Quay Scott for taking the time to chat with us. Our goal is to post content with student athletes, coaches, faculty, staff, and administration twice a month, so please subscribe. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and don't forget to subscribe to the Ranch newsletter by visiting mauldinathletics.com. You will receive an email each Sunday night or Monday morning updating you with game results, schedules, ticket information, and other great things going on inside Mavland. Again, thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Go Mavs!